Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder. Today we are diving into VF Corporation's proxy statement. Now, proxy statements, they might sound boring, but trust me, they can be a goldmine of information about what the company is doing, how they pay their executives, and what's coming up next year. And before we start, if you appreciate getting straight insights from corporate documents, make sure you're subscribed. We also have a Discord community linked in the description below for more discussions and insights. VF Corporation is a big name in the apparel world, owning brands like Vans, The North Face, and Timberland. In their most recent letter to shareholders, the chairman mentioned some key progress, especially around paying down debt. They paid down $1.8 billion in debt during fiscal year 2025. Debt reduction is a big deal because it makes the company more stable in the long run. The letter also talks about the Reinvent transformation program, and while it is a bit vague, it sounds like they're trying to cut costs and become more efficient, aiming for a 10% operating margin by fiscal year 2025. Debt reduction is a big deal because it makes the company more stable in the long run. The letter also talks about the Reinvent transformation program, and while it is they still have some work to do in the growth department with revenue declining this past year, the upcoming shareholder meeting will cover some standard items like electing directors and voting on executive pay, also known as say on pay. They will also be voting on PricewaterhouseCoopers as VF's independent accounting firm for fiscal year 2026, which is basically a formality to make sure the books are being checked by a neutral third party. It's worth noting the board is unanimously recommending shareholders vote in favor of all proposals. Here is a quick snapshot of their business. They made $9, 5,027,000 employees around the world. It's important to keep in mind this is revenue, not profit. Speaking of debt again, they paid off $1.8 billion of it. They also have a physical presence with 1,127 owned retail stores as of March 2025. This tells us that while they are a global brand, they still rely heavily on retail stores as of March 2025. This tells us that while they are a global brand, they still rely heavily on retail stores as of March 2025. This tells us that while they are a global brand, they still rely heavily on retail stores as of March 2025. This tells us that while they are a global brand, they still rely heavily on retail stores. Let's take a look at the people who are up for election to the board. These are the folks who will be guiding VF's strategy, keeping an eye on risk and making sure management is doing their job. You've got Richard Carucci, the retired president of Yum Brands, as well as Alexander Cho, president of Personal Systems at HP, and Juliana Chugg, who is the former EVP Chief Brands Officer, Mattel Inc. You also have Bracken Darrell, who is the current president and CEO of VF Corporation. VF highlights the skills and qualifications that the directors bring to the table. You'll see things like talent and culture, design and product innovation, and operations and process transformation. This is basically VF's way of showing shareholders that they have a well-rounded board with the right expertise to lead the company. You'll also find some of the nominees' demographic information. As you see, 7 of their director nominees are gender or ethnically, racially diverse. VF values engagement with its shareholders, which makes shareholders happy, especially the big ones. They reached out to shareholders representing over 77% of their outstanding shares this past year. Engaging like this is crucial for a company like VF, where brand perception can make or break them. The company has a long-standing commitment to sound and effective corporate governance practices. This includes things like ensuring a majority of the board is independent and performing annual board self-evaluations. A big piece of corporate governance is risk management, so they try to follow the rules and keep out of trouble. VF has several key committees that make sure the company is running smoothly. There's the audit committee that makes sure all the company's financials are accurate and compliant. There is the finance committee that oversees and reviews capital structures, mergers, acquisitions, dividends, and other financial matters. You also have the governance and corporate responsibility committee. This committee oversees environmental, social, and corporate governance issues and nominates new board members. Finally, you have the talent and compensation committee, which focuses on executive compensation, benefits, and succession planning. This prohibits directors, officers, and employees from trading VF securities while in possession of confidential information, ensuring fair market practices and compliance with regulations. The policy also prohibits short sales and hedging transactions to prevent executives from betting against the company's stock. Here's where things get interesting, the section on executive compensation. Shareholders get to vote on whether they approve of how the company pays its top executives. This is known as a say on pay vote. As stated in the document, VF shareholders have shown support for the company's executive compensation program, with over 94% approval at their 2020 actions the company is trying to achieve. Fiscal year 2025 was a bit of a mixed bag. On one hand, the company paid down a significant chunk of its debt. On the other hand, revenue declined by 4%, breaking that down a little more. The North Face actually saw a slight increase in revenue, while Vans' revenue took a 16% hit. It appears the company has challenges in the Americas region. To get a better picture of executive compensation, you need to dive deeper into the tables. To fully get into the detail would take far too long, and honestly, it's pretty boring. We can, however, take a look at compensation actually paid versus the summary compensation table SCT total for an idea of how incentives work. Executives also participate in deferred compensation plans, allowing them to save for retirement on a tax-deferred basis. It's a pretty standard benefit for executives at large companies, offering flexibility in managing their long-term financial planning. VF also discloses the ratio of their CEO's pay to the median employee's pay. For fiscal 2025, the CEO to median employee pay ratio is 3,044 to 1. This means that the CEO makes 344 times what the median employee makes. Finally, the equity compensation plan information table gives a breakdown of the shares available under VF's equity compensation plans. As of March 29, 2025, there were over 38 million shares available for future issuance under the plan. This is important because equity compensation is a way to align the interests of employees and shareholders, incentivizing them to work towards the company's long-term success. Now, let's step back and look at the big picture. It seems that VF is taking steps to get its financial house in order, especially around debt reduction and improving efficiency. They're clearly focused on turning around their struggling brands and strengthening their balance sheet. One notable area for improvement is in growing revenues. While cost cutting can boost profits in the short term, sustainable growth is key for long-term success. They need to reignite demand for brands like Vans. While they have made progress in recent years and the financials reflect that, it is still a company that is in the middle of a turnaround. It seems that the current direction is solid and the board is taking steps to ensure the long-term success of VF Corporation are font. It seems that the current direction is solid and the board is taking steps to ensure the long-term success of VF Corporation of right. It seems that the current direction is solid and the board is taking steps to ensure the long-term success of VF Corporation of I. That's our breakdown of these numbers and what they signal for the company's future. Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See that the current direction is solid and the board is taking steps to ensure the long-term success of VF Corporation of FAD. Alright, that's our breakdown of VF Corporation's latest proxy statement. What's your take on these numbers and what they signal for the companies that is